Okay, so how do we want to do this?
Well, do we
Let's
start
talk
with
about
choke
holding
first?
forward
Yeah.
first, I guess. Like, okay, there's three standard places, and then one not so good place that you can hold on Badlands for Spire.
Yeah, I mean, the choke is pretty much standard. Like, there's some little variations, but the most general thing is you have a scout pretty much sitting around this kind of area, like the cliff. You have your demo man. He's generally going to be poking forward, trying to just pad his damage stats. Bloody demo man. Your pocket's probably going to be like extremely forward, either here, like this kind of area, just right at the choke, or one I really like doing is up here, just because it's an extremely aggressive postured position, and a lot of teams just love pushing house and resup these days. So you can punish them pushing in here by just poking a bit, and then just go, oh, hello, look, there's a combo here, and you can just proceed to force them, and you can easily juggle them and retreat, and then you can just push in afterwards with Uber and counterattack.
Yep.
And
then you want your Roma, which is me, sitting over here at resup. So if you look at where I am now, basically the old style of holding like resup is to hold kind of where I am now. Like we used to hold really forward on resup and here, and you might push up and poke house and be super cheeky, like, oh, I'm so safe. Nowadays, if you know that they're likely to push resup, seriously, just sit in resup. Like just sit right here on the door. Like where James is right now, it's like perfect spam location. Like,
I'm taking like probably 40 damage at least, and it's just annoying. And if I'm a scout, that's just even more annoying. I poke and it's like, oh, I want to heal.
And because you've got a resup just here, seriously, you can just hold your button down. Like, I mean, they will be counting it, so you want to be careful, or they could be counting it. But like, if you think they may be coming, like, if James moves a bit, it would be nice. Like, you can, these rockets that I'm shooting right now, you're pretty much safe here. And like, that will hit people coming around the corner, and also people that are looking to go out of the little house, which is where James is right now. So yeah, like these days, you're not really at resup to get kills. Like you're not here to get kills on a scout that pushes. You're here to delay them and to give your team time to get back, which pretty much just means an early call. Like all you can do is get an early call, and then when they commit too much, and when they come into resup, then you can poke out and shoot rockets and stuff. In saying that though, there are situations where you can play aggressive on resup. So if you have a really tight lockdown on them and you can see them, because one of your scouts should be constantly kind of poking around corner and saying, okay, they're sitting on train, or okay, I can't see them, they're in house. And when you know they're on train, like yeah, you can peek up and there will be a scout sitting just here. You can spam rockets. You can like kind of poke if you're feeling like confident. You just need to be really careful. And at the same time, if they do commit, this is another niche situation, but it's really good. If they do commit into house, don't be afraid to jump onto window and to play aggressive on them from behind if your team is thinking about pushing in and meeting them there. And other than that, the only real thing you can do, and this is the same, I won't talk about holding resup again, because you will be holding resup a lot. Like you'll be holding resup on a corner hold. If for whatever reason your team's on Grey Bridge, you might be holding resup on that. Sometimes if they're in pocket, you'll be holding resup, like a lot of the time if they haven't pushed around yet. And yeah, what you can do, and it was something I was doing to tag a lot actually when we were playing HRG, is if James comes forward a bit, he would either jump to here or he would walk out, and all I would do, just over and over again, is just jump from here and just pick a jewel. Like I didn't really want to kill him. I mean, obviously a kill was nice, but I just wanted to
force him back.
Yeah, I just wanted, it was basically posturing. It was saying, look, don't come here. Like I will jump you, I will get aggressive. Like, and people don't really want to take that risk, because if they know that I'm just going to sit back and do nothing, he might try and do something cheeky and jump in or something. But if I'm here and I'm jumping the player that's coming, they know that I'm willing to risk trading myself to stop him taking that ground. So a lot of roaming is that kind of decision making. It's posturing. It's just kind of holding ground for your team when you're on your own. Like these days, you don't really ever have a scout at resup. Like maybe you've got a scout in drop down, and he's like kind of rotating and checking for you, especially if your team's holding bulk or something like that.
Sitting like kind of on this slope and coming between like the end of Grey Bridge and this kind of area, just to make sure in case they decide to ball like 1,000 players through a resup really quickly, they don't just overlap.
Yeah. But it's very rare that you have a scout sitting in the old school spot, which is just where I am right now, and just shooting people. Like, and teams do still really want to take resup. They want to push their combo through resup. They want to jump scouts and roamers into resup and stuff. So as far as it really goes, like you're on your own. Like you need to not die as much as you can unless you're going to trade well. and you need to just buy that time for your team to rotate. Like, even if a scout's standing here, if you get caught out here by a roamer jumping and a scout pushing, you are dead. Like, that scout cannot help you. You are dead. He might pick up a kill or two after you die, maybe, but most likely you're just going to get juggled into the wall. You'll die. They'll get up into drop down, and then your team's one player down. They have players behind, and it's gone pretty much perfectly for them. So you don't want to let that happen.
Yeah.
All right. So that's really resup.
I can expand on the combo side a bit. A lot of the time, like, as a pocket, I'm just generally thinking, even though I'm defending, I'm just like, how can I get aggressive here? Because you don't want to just sit and wait for them to eventually get on their terms. You want to force them into a bad Uber or just a bad fight in general. You just want to try and make them as scrappy as possible, make them uncomfortable. So a lot of the time, if I'm like holding on these stairs, this is probably the place I hold commonly the most. I'm just like poking here, just letting them know, hey, I know you're here. If you want to push up, you're going to have to, you know, deal with me. So a lot of the time, teams kind of adjusted to that a little bit in Australia anyway. I'm sure a couple of NA and Euro teams did as well. And they would often have their demo man moving more towards here as opposed to the choke, and they'd have a scout at the choke. So there'd be about 4 or 5 stickies there. So if I tried to poke him and punish someone, I'd die. So a little...
Yeah. Which is especially important if you were trying to rotate behind people that had just pushed race up. Because their demo can still push race up, and as soon as someone calls that there's, like, often maybe the roamer might stay in house. As soon as someone calls, or like they've gone around corner, as soon as someone calls the pocket's coming in, you can just bet and you're in trouble.
But a really good adaptation to that is, let's just say theoretically their combo has pushed maybe around to this kind of area, and their demo is watching the house with stickies and they have one scout there. If that is the case, there's going to be practically no stickies at choke, so I'm going to have our demo probably sitting up around maybe this kind of cliff area, so he's relatively safe. He can sticky jump away to battlements or Spire if he needs to. Maybe have a scout around the choke just floating around with him, and our roamer and scout are kind of just doing whatever. And I'm just going to be like, hey, I'm going to push into, you know, mid from choke, because there's only a scout there. He's not going to deny me any positioning whatsoever. So I'm just going to do big aggressive rocket jump. I get behind them, and suddenly they're like, oh crap, their combo's behind us. They've got a scout that's pretty much out of the fight, and their demo man is probably not really getting very healed because their combo's pushing forward. So we're just wrapping behind them. There's probably not going to be any stickies here, and I can punish this demo man or combo or whoever who's sitting here and just get a huge amount of damage, force him into a scrappy fight on multi, and we just get some scrappy kills and just win like that, and then retake the midpoint after that. So that's something you want to keep in mind.
Obviously, if you do something... Sorry, yeah, if you do something like that, the kind of buck stops with the rest of your team. Like, they cannot die. Like, if your pocket has committed around corner and has come in behind them, if you lose your roamer at resup or your scouts or your demo, like, God forbid, if you lose any of those players, your pocket is now in a very, very bad place. Like, he is out of position, he's on his own, and they can just cap Spire and kind of leave
and
you
I've got the medic with me, so no one else is getting healed. That's something that's going to be very...
it's just terrible. Like, you need to play really smart and really safe, and also try not to let them take too much ground. So it's difficult, but it definitely works if you pull it off. Okay, anything else for holding close? I guess maybe we should talk about where you would expect them to come from. So the most likely place these days is either them balling around corner, like jumping a roamer around corner,
or just sending an Ubered combo through the house, or even just like a roamer. But generally, if they kind of delay their Uber a bit, a lot of the teams, I think even Infused did it a couple of times against us in some scrims, and we were kind of perplexed by it. They just jumped all 3 of their heavy classes around the choke, and it's just like, oh god, there's 3 people flying at us.
Yeah,
it is very terrifying. I guess
it's not what you want to see, especially if you don't have Uber.
That's where that scout not playing at reset really comes into play, because you're going to have 2 scouts around here, a demo, your pocket, and a medic. So that's 5 players, and your roamer's just kind of holding reset, making sure nothing else comes behind. But basically, if that kind of thing happens, one of the most important things is for your demo to keep the stickies on this choke. You don't want the choke end probably around here, the house exit, because what's really, really important is if those players fly around, the scouts don't come in time to help them. So you want to keep those scouts held back as long as you can, because the scouts are going to be the real damage dealers, the real killers.
And just let your scouts mop up.
Exactly. You
like
want to just
aggressive players,
try
basically.
and just keep those players out as long as you can as a demo man, and we're going to lose cap time. I don't think we're going
to
get
get
time,
on the point, James?
but that's something that's extremely important to just as demo man just stand there. Oh, overtime, we got this. But yeah, just as demo, because a lot of demo men, they'll just be like, oh god, there's people flying around the choke, I need to use my stickies. But as soon as you detonate those stickies, those scouts are going to come flying around and just ravage the rest of your team.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably say we already covered what to do if they push race up, like you guys want to fall back. But when would you hold corner, James? Like when do you think you would hold corner?
Extremely even situation, or like if we have even an advantage, because I want to try and push either from the choke or from house. So that's if we're attacking, mind you. But generally, it's just this choke. Just because if they decide to, you know, peek a player, I can just constantly be checking this choke. If someone decides to have a little poke, I could just spam them back or even potentially kill them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a risky position to hold if you have a disadvantage, like very risky, because they can just take ground and you can't really do too much about it. But if it's even or you have an advantage, like there's so many options for you to get back. Like most likely, the only time you can really get caught out, if it's even, is either them doing like a big YOLO play around corner or them taking race up and like you losing a player. Because if you don't lose a player at race up, your Roma's going to get a super early call on it and you guys can just fall back. Like, you do have to obviously give up that area unless you have Uber and then you can maybe take it into them. But like the early call will give you enough time for you not to just get minced. Essentially. Alright, so apart from that, on Spire you can also hold on Greybridge. I kind of don't want to encourage people to hold on Greybridge though, so...
Hey, this is kind of like you're retreating and like you never really hold on here that much because you can kind of get minced from resup. Like granted you may have a Roma here, but if their soldier has pushed here, and sure, like your Roma's cool, and Apori was saying earlier, he can jump this Roma. If a Roma just decides to just bypass you entirely, and your combo's on Greybridge, like look how quick the access is. You can get an easy 1 or 2 rockets on your combo, and if, like theoretically, like this is extremely aggressive. If their demo man decides to jump from choke onto the Spire and just rain hell on you, it's very risky. So you want to generally try and get off here as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And move towards the trash area or battlements. I mean, trash is a lot quicker to get to. You mean you just go through the lobby area and you're here. And trash, there's a lot of room for mobility, surprisingly enough. Like, one thing you'll have is you have your demo kind of just floating around here generally. It's easier for him to do damage to the Spire, easy for him to spam that cliff there, and if they're coming from resup, he can spam it too. And a really cool thing as Pocket you can do is, if they start pushing in this trash extremely aggressively, you just jump towards the Spire and you just let your demo kind of brawl a bit with the medic, as well as maybe a scout floating around as well. And I'm just doing spam damage. I'm just trying to avoid as much damage taken as I can, while doing as much damage as I can as well. And while I'm at it, maybe disrupt the Uber, just juggle them a bit. That's just so much room for maneuverability. Whereas if you're holding on battlements, it's kind of wonky to be able to do it. I mean, you can jump from the battlements to the Spire, because the most common pushing area pretty much is the trash area. You can do it there as well, but there's so much more potential for wonky movement in trash than there is on battlement.
Yeah, and like while it looks fairly easy to like do damage on these players from here, like just the ability of a demo to sit back and throw stickies onto the Spire is so strong from trash. Like they can also do it from battlements, but if you just look at the angle that I've got right now, like there's a lot of opportunity for me to stop that demo man from getting too much free damage, and I can kind of camp on this side and then like just do damage there. And a lot of the time, what we like to do, I don't know if we should give away this little trade secret, not that any other team ever does it. What we like to do, I was sarcastic by the way, yeah, but what we like to do when they're on like battlements on corner bulks and they're spamming our Spire is I'll just come through resup or wherever, stand here, James will be somewhere else, he might be on the other side of Spire or he might be with me, and we just jump them. Like it's such an easy kill for you to get medic or to force demo down into the trash, like one rocket and you can throw him into trash. Like you'll probably die, but you'll probably buy enough time for your team to cap, or if you do that at the same time that you have a scout rushing in through under, like it can just turn basically what could be a bad situation into a good one, just because how cramped it is here. That said, if you are holding battlements, which is, like, lots of teams do hold battlements, and we do it a fair bit, which is usually if they've already taken kind of too much ground for you to get into pocket without risking getting cut off, like through lower lobby, or cut off just like through this area here. Like, if you do hold here, it is strong to be able to repel people on Greybridge and to counter jump onto Spire, and to spam, and to spam like this region here as well. Like, you can do a lot of damage, and you still always do have the option of dropping down into pocket if you repel that initial push and then playing from there as well. So you definitely shouldn't.
I feel battlements is used more
that.
if you've lost mid and they have a decent advantage, not like an overwhelming advantage, but a decent advantage. And battlements is just really quick to get to from last, as opposed to you're retreating from Spire. Oh, you're retreating from Choke, excuse me. And it's just like, hey, let's go battlement. It takes your medic like, what, 10 seconds to walk up here, whereas going to trash, it takes him like 3 or 4 seconds. So it is very dependent. I mean, if you can somehow waste time, like your roamer just holds them up with a choke for a bit, or a scout or something, then going battlements is fine, because you can drop to the trash area later. But it doesn't really work the other way around. You can't really go from trash to battlements. I mean, your medic cannot rocket jump. No quick fix allowed.
Yeah, it's easy to get zoned out in battlements. Like, if the enemy demo man gets onto Spire before you're on corner balk already, he can easily stick you off, and then you're kind of in big trouble. Like, if they, as a general rule, honestly, the way I see it, and the way I think a lot of our games go, is if a demo man's up here and they have greater than, like, and they have a scout up here too, and you're not already right here, there is no way that you are going to be able to defend from in there. Like, you're just going to have to hold forward. Like, there's nothing else you can do. It's game over. Unless you have, like a roamer doing what James just did, then you might potentially get lucky and maybe knock him off and get a kill.
If it's a mediocre, like an even decent scout, he's just gonna be like, oh look, a soldier jumping, 2-shot, you jump around and you're kind of dead.
You can't do much, like you kind of have to rely on like surprising them. So in both of these pushes, like for trash and for battlements, sorry, not pushes, holds, like your flank may still be in reset, like it depends on where they are. And often, like, your team will be falling back there and you might fall back to the reset because you've been in a fight and now you're, like, kind of, you know, dealing with some players here or whatever. Especially if they are pushing through reset. Other than that, though, you can play from a lot of places. Like, if your team is in trash as a roamer, you can play from, like, this window here and on balk, or you can go behind. Like, I do that a lot. I probably shouldn't do it as much as I do, or at least I should call it. But, like, you can go behind and, like, just play from house. Like, what I like to do, and I actually had a big talk with Termo about it back when he used to play, is like his team loved to take this area right here when we were in trash. Like they loved to take it and play slow and just do damage because like he was confident that he could out damage like our team on demo or whatever. I don't know why he liked to do it, but he did. And all I would do as a roamer was just come into house, not the way I just came obviously from reset. I'd come into house, maybe jump onto window and hopefully pick off a player that's respawning in here. And then I would just poke out here. Like, I'm not looking to jump, I'm not looking to do anything, I just poke out, spam some rockets, draw their attention. Exactly. And like, that's what I was talking about before, where like a lot of the game is posturing. Like, if I'm in here and they know I'm in here, they can't commit through this region here. Like, it's risky for them to do it, so they kind of have to go that way if they want to, and then they still know that I'm here. Like, they know I'm behind. They know if they get on Spire, they can't just watch pocket, they have to watch me back here. And even if I just poke, and this is something that I used to do most of the time, I wouldn't even stay here. I'd just poke, shoot some rockets, maybe think, oh, there was a respawner, I'm going to camp him. If there's no respawner, I'd just go back to reset, and then go back and join my team on Greybridge or whatever, and they've just wasted 10 seconds, and we're 10 seconds closer to getting Uber, and 10 seconds closer to having respawns, or whatever it is that has us in this disadvantaged position. So yeah, that's why Spire's such kind of a good point. It's honestly, I think Spire
should be on every map. Confirmed.
Yeah, like Spire is one of the better points in the game, for sure, I think. And it's one of the most dynamic, and it's also one of the most punishing if you don't know how to play it. But I mean, even if you just follow what we were saying just there, like, to the letter, like, you should be able to do it better. Although, I guess one thing we didn't say, we said it in the attacking video, I'm sure, and we say it every time we talk about Badlands. On Spire, please don't throw your life away defending. Like, on Spire, players are paramount. Like, it is so important for you to have people alive when you're defending Spire. Like, I mean, if you're going to trade well, like a soldier for a demo, or if you do force their Uber and you guys have Uber and they're really far away, sure, maybe it's worth it. But there's a general rule, like, the only thing Uber's really that good for on Spire is, like, zoning out the other team so you can get cap time. Like, on Spire, you need to be focusing on denying them cap time. So everything we said in the attacking video, try and stop them doing that. So denying cap time and keeping players alive and looking to pick off their players that overextend and counter jumping Spire and stuff like that. Like, basically, if you make them take long enough, they're going to start taking more damage than you most likely, and they'll have to fall back. Like, you have access to a kit in lower lobby. Exactly, you have access to a kit in lower lobby kits in balcony. You've got race up still on your
Got
side.
too many kits on Spire as well. I mean, that's like a little bit, but...
And inevitably, if they don't get a kill, they'll end up in this region right here where I am, and this is like Death Valley. Like, as soon as a team is here, I am looking to jump onto this place here, or where James is now, and just harassing them.
Jumping up here from trash to punish them. And our demo will be pushing forward with our medic. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and your demo will be just here. Yeah. And the scout will be coming through house, and it's just like, when you're stuck in this position and you're already low, it's like, shit, I'm dead.
F10.
Like, yeah, F10, just quit. It's game over. Just retire. Tier 2 is dead.
You can even just lose the whole round just from that, because that's how quick Badlands can be. I mean, it's kind of like Granary in that aspect that rolls can happen so quickly like that, but on Badlands it's just even more, just because it's so open compared to Granary.
Yeah, I mean, on Badlands, it's less of lose mid, lose last, but it is definitely lose Spire. If you lose Spire all at once, you all die, and you don't get forward spawn, you will lose your Spire, most likely. Like, that is something to think about. When you're attacking Spire, obviously this is the opposite point of our video, but when you're attacking Spire, if you lose it, and you lose it badly, and they have Uber, or even if they don't have Uber, but they keep 5 or 6 players alive, and they're fast onto mid, you will most likely lose your Spire, or you'll be doing what we were talking about and trying to defend it from battlements and having a lot of trouble because they'll have a demo man up there and you'll just get screwed, basically. And it's not a great place to lose lots of players anyway, just because of the ability of soldiers to jump onto your race up and kill your medic when they're walking out, or just generally, like, just cause havoc, so... Yeah, just be wary for both teams, because obviously if you're defending, the opposite is true. If you lose Spire badly, you will lose last, because it's like right here.
Yeah, it's just such a quick entrance from this second point, just straight through here. I mean, as a soldier, even if I just want to back up, I'll just be like, oh hello, look, 1 rocket jump, 2 rocket jumps, 3, straight on last, cap it. But I'm not going to cap it, because you want to keep going.
Yeah. And the thing about Badlands is, like, probably the most important thing about Badlands is it is probably the back cap point. Like, Badlands last is the... I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it is the most back capped point in the game, I would say, in terms of last points, because it caps in like a quarter of a second.
Back kappa.
Or maybe even... back kappa. Maybe even a tenth of a second. Like, it is so fast. So if you lose Spire when you're defending because you're slack and lazy and you aren't contesting them on Spire, now you're holding forward and they have so many ways to get to your last, and you'll be like kind of edging to get back to your last while they're like holding W at you, and you may just all die in lobby because you were too slow and you forgot to defend the point. It's not like, I mean, Granary is similar, but it's not like on Granary where you can give them some cap time and then contest and spam from a distance. You do not want to do that on Spire. Like, if you want to defend it, you want to defend it. You don't want to let them like 9/10 cap it and then decide, oh shit, we should probably be trying to stop this. Like, it just doesn't work well.
Because they can get to last so quickly, whereas in Granary you can, the roller doors where your demo can spam from a distance, your pocket can just buys time.
And most likely there's a player already camping around last, some shitty scout that decided they didn't want to do something, or most likely me, because I love back capping last. And I'll just be screaming at my team, like, just cap it, I don't care what you do. And sometimes James will be like, well, they just stopped us, so he'll just fall back, and then, like, someone might just jump onto the Spire and get that last quarter of a second, and then you lose. Like, it's so frustrating when it happens to you, and the only way to stop it is to make sure you're super conscientious about actually defending and making sure they don't get players on Spire, and making sure they don't have players just running all over you.
Yep. Nice vacuum. I guess that also depends in turn how many people the other team have. Like, if I mean, if they've lost 0 players, they're going to be leaving 1 person mid-tops, and they're going to send the rest of their team straight forward to try and cap the Spire. But if it's
I think as a general rule, even players definitely hold. And as a general rule, I think you can, on Spire, I think honestly, even though players are so important, because of some of the holding positions, if they don't have Uber, you can buy time kind of okay, depending on what you lose. Like, as a general rule, sorry, I said that like 3 times in a row now, but as a general rule, if you lose your demo, you're not going to hold Spire on mid. If you lose your demo late on mid and you have like 3 players falling back, if you have 5 players falling back, sure, but if you've only got like 3 players falling back and your demo is not one of them, you're most likely not going to be able to hold. Would you agree with that, James?
Yeah,
like, you're most likely going to be looking to hold forward.
I mean, even if they lose their demo, it's more important that you have yours for defending, because it's so much easier for him to do damage. and their scouts could just be set up in the Spire and just deny any jumping attempts.
Yeah, so like, to answer your question with like a number figure, assuming your demo's alive, and if you lose a scout and a soldier on mid, you can hold Spire.
Yeah.
Even if they've got 6 up, if you lose a scout and a soldier like relatively early, not at the very last second, you can probably hold Spire. Like, you're gonna not be looking to like necessarily hold it forever, but
Buying
you can
time,
slow Spire a lot.
Potentially
like, you can
get some
sit in
picks,
pocket.
force a Uber, you can just do multiple things.
Because players on Spire often look to overextend because they understand that players are so important, but like we said in the attacking video, those players are only important if they stay alive. So like what a lot of players will do is if they get an advantage, they're going to be like, yeah, I can cap Spire, this is sick, and then they die, and then all of a sudden it's not such a great advantage anymore, and you can hold it. Obviously, if you do lose players though, something you really have to look out for is, like, say they're 6 up and you've just lost a scout and a soldier. Say you lost a scout and your roamer. You're really going to have to be careful of your flank. Like, just because Spire is such a good point for an attacking team to get behind you and just, like, kill you. Because if you're holding here, a roamer can, like, walk in front door, you can go up into drop down and come out from here.
Or even their combo can push through this grey bridge area, which I just love doing, assuming it's not sticky and don't walk into a sticky trap.
Yeah, and if they're holding on battlements or in pocket, like, I know we've got an advantage, and the opposite of what I was saying just before, where players die and it's not worth it anymore. Like, if I know our scouts are going to be jumping onto there or our demo, I will literally just jump straight at you. Like, I might kill the medic, I might not. I might kill a demo, I might not. I really don't care. Like, because even just then, with 1 times cap, like, those 2 rockets, which I'm guaranteed to get, James half capped the point. And cap time is so important on Spire that I would throw my life away in that situation if they don't already have respawns, because really we still have a 1-player advantage, and maybe I'll get the med. Like, quite often you can get the med in that situation because the med is kind of holding here. They're 1 scout down, so their scout is going to have to kind of be floating around and watching Spire, and you might have a demo spamming, and their demo is most likely holding here because he wants to put like pressure on the point. So yeah, you do just have to be careful. But yeah, that was a good question. So thanks for that. Is that all we can talk about for Spire, really, do you think?
Scouts and demo are priority picks, but that's pretty much the same on every map, apart from, like, Granary, I guess. I mean, if you pick a scout, like, if you trade your roamer for a scout, that's actually quite a favourable trade for Spire, because scouts are just so manoeuvrable around this point, and
because roamer becomes, I'm not going to say useless, because we were talking about some of the uses before, but roamer gets very much outweighed as soon as you have the slightest disadvantage, because their scouts will be on Spire, and all of a sudden you can't do very much. Yep. Anything else for Spire? Or do you think we can do holding forward?
I mean,
I guess on battlements.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at another thing. If you want to, like, one thing that can be really good for holding on battlements is having a sheep. I mean, sniper. Like, common sniper spot just here. If they don't know, they push around choke. He headshots a medic. We all win, and happy days. And we're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's something that in our most recent final, like, because I hang out with a bunch of the SV guys. If you ever get Ep started onto the topic of pushing against sheep, it's an awful thing to hear. And it's not the same for just sheep. Like, it is a very good spot for a sniper to try and get a pick on your medic. And if your sniper's competent, like, obviously, as a general rule, if your sniper is not good, and lots of snipers are not good, even if they think they are, don't run a sniper. Like, you are better off having 2 scouts than 1 scout and a shitty sniper that's just ruining your time and basically doing nothing except getting 1 super lucky headshot when he flicks his mouse halfway across his bedroom and gets a kill on your medic. Like, that's not what you want. Like, you want to have consistency. But if you do have a sniper that's consistent, yeah, sure, like, play him on balcony, get picks.
I mean, even just like
any
a
of those
body
kills
shot
that he
on
gets
a
is
scout
important.
or the medic even, like, is actually pretty good. I mean, headshot kills are obviously fantastic, but if he's just like lining up here, because a lot of the time he's just going to be sitting here making sure they don't see him early. He's going to be waiting for the medic to peek, and as soon as that happens, peeks out, full body shots a medic, everyone's happy except the other team.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it is a really strong place. If you are running a sniper, you have to be really careful that someone doesn't get behind. it becomes really important for your roamer to kind of play around keeping your sniper alive a little, unless it's more beneficial for you to like jump if your sniper's already killed a player and it's like, yeah, okay, he can die now, that's fine, whatever. Let's get aggressive and get kills. But yeah, so if you have a sniper or if you're holding a balcony, you want to maybe be just sitting in resup over there or in drop down where I am now, just making sure no one can come up. Or you can just camp here, because if they have a sniper here and you don't show yourself, like, you know that they're going to come through resup. Like, you know a scout's going to be like, I got to kill that sniper, he's going to be a free kill, and he gets basically like a raging hard on for killing the sniper. And if you just sit here, he will guarantee, I can guarantee you, 8 out of 10 scouts will jump from there into this and not even look. Like, they don't care if you're here. All they've got eyes for is the sniper, and you can just shoot 2 rockets and he's dead, so...
Yeah. I guess one thing to keep in mind, though, like, very important, when you have a sniper, even if you have, like, 1 player advantage, you got to remember, even if they are still a good sniper, you are kind of outmatched in the DM department because you have that -1 scout.
Yep.
So very important. It's something I just would sometimes throw out the window because I thought she would literally headshot everything. He kind of did to an extent at land, and just in general. But sometimes I would be far too aggressive, and we only had 1 scout because we had 1 sniper, and I'd kind of put ourselves in a precarious position where I'd be like, hang on, we should have 2 scouts here right now. But then it's like, wait, we had a sniper, and I've just put us into a bad position, and since we don't have 2 scouts, we're kind of screwed. So that's something you've really got to keep in mind. You want to, even if you have player advantage or whatever, uber advantage, you still want to play it fairly slow with a sniper, because you let him get body shots, weaken them down, force them back even. Just don't... Yeah.
Just make them afraid even, like make them be sitting and not peeking because they're worried about the sniper. Like, you slow the game down and you play really baity, and that's basically how you play with a sniper. And like the other scout, this is something, actually a question that we had to field a lot. When you have a sniper, especially if he's like a full-time career sniper, like some people, the other scout's role kind of changes. You have to
do everything. It's
always a balancing act between the flank and the combo. But when you only have one scout, the combo becomes a lot more important. Like, even if I die here because the scout's not with me, that's a bad thing. Like, it's a bad thing, but it's also my fault. Like, if I know there's a sniper, I should not, as a roamer, any roamer, should not be anticipating that scout to help you. You can say, hey, come here now, let's do something, and then if he doesn't come, then that's probably not a great thing, because you should communicate better. But if you're just spamming and you die, if a roamer ever says, why wasn't the scout with me when you have a sniper, that's the wrong thing to be saying. The right thing to be saying is a pocket saying, why isn't the scout with me? Because his medic just died to 2 scouts holding W around corner when like your scout was with your roamer and shouldn't have been.
Yeah, like the scout
that's just
is,
something to keep in perspective.
The solo scout is almost a rock. He needs to be just extremely stable. He can't really be too over aggressive, or like he can't be really too aggressive in general. He kind of wants to just sit around a bit, just make sure everyone's happy, make sure someone just doesn't decide to run forward and 2-shot. He's just there to make sure that people on the other team just don't get super aggressive just because you have a sniper.
Yeah, and that means obviously, like what I was saying before, your roamer has to be more careful, and at the same time your roamer needs to not die. Like, you can die as a roamer, but you need to give your team a hell of a lot of information about when you're gonna die. So like, if we have a sniper, and because Sheep plays sniper so much, and obviously I do die quite a bit because I like to play aggressive, like I'll be calling early, like I'm gonna do something, and then when I die, my team knows that the flank is most likely kind of open, and they can like adjust for that. But if I just go balls in and be like, nah, I'm jumping, and then like jump again and do nothing, especially with that jump. Yeah, if I jump again and do nothing, like our team is going to be in massive trouble basically, because I've just given up the flank, and our scout and our pocket might be here or wherever they are. It doesn't really matter, and on any map it's the same. So yeah, like you can still play aggressive, but you need to be confident that you can do something with it, and you need to make sure your team knows so that scout can kind of accommodate for it, and your pocket and your demo know that you won't have kind of that scout on your combo anymore. Yeah. Alright, let's do... I'm just going to go cut the point so we get some more time, because we can't cut last anymore. And then let's talk about...
Last and lobby.
Holding forward.
Holding forward is kind of part of holding last, really. Ish.
Yeah, it's the same. Yes. It's a process. It's a 2-step process. So basically, lobby is what makes Badlands such a good map. Like, there are lots of things that make Badlands a really good map, mainly middle, Spire, and last, which is not the same for Snakewater, where middle, second, and last make it a very bad map. But on Badlands, it probably has some of the best transition play in the game. Like the design of lobby, and I remember when we actually first started defending lobby, I remember Boat was talking to us. This was probably maybe 2011. I think maybe we've been playing with each other for about a year, or maybe it was more like 8 months. Anyway, it doesn't, who cares, that was so long ago. But he said, oh, I just saw some team doing this, I don't remember who it was. It might have been Complexity. Or was it a Euro team? Yeah. Yeah, he was like, I just saw this team doing this crazy thing. They hold forward in lobby and you just can't do anything. And I remember us being like, no, like you're just leaving last point open, like... Yeah, it's so risky. Why would you ever risk that? Why don't you just hold last with a sentry and a heavy and play really awful? Yeah, but the whole nature of holding forward is that's really hard. Like, and it was a good thing that he said that, and it was a good thing that whichever Euro team worked it out. And credit to whoever that was, and if it was an American team, I'm sorry. But yeah, so when you're holding forward, basically the idea of holding forward is that you're delaying them. Like you're delaying them so that you can get Uber and you can go back to last. Like as a general rule, you don't want to be here once you have Uber.
And sometimes you can.
Unless you want to be pushing. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's one of those big unlesses.
Yeah, it's a very, like, I generally don't really like doing it that much, especially if they like overwhelm the drop down area, excuse me. Then I'm gonna have to be forced to rotate here, and if I rotate here, that whole side is open. So it's very risky, but can be done. But that's another thing, really.
Yeah, so we'll talk about like the general thing that you want. So you want a demo man sitting just where I am now. Sticky's there. I don't know how many. Demo man's an easy class. Just put one sticky, it'll kill everyone. You want your pocket kind of sitting up here as well, just like spamming around.
Generally, I'm also poking the Spire, very important. Especially if they've only just capped it with one player, I'm just poking this. I would be calling, oh, their medic's walking up Spire now, so...
And you're hoping that he jumps straight across, and then you're like, see you, mate. Dead forever.
So
Peace.
often I'm just like shooting this horizontal rocket, just hoping it's gonna hit a medic.
Yeah, and just knock them to the ground. Just makes you feel good when you hit it, yeah.
He'll just get the pill on Spire anyway, but it will just make me feel so good, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm the best. But that's that's really important. I mean, this is a very good spot for you to be, because your demo's holding the doors. And if it's not called that their medic's coming up to Spire, you obviously need to expect the potential of them pushing, just Ubering through the doors. While that's very risky for them, it can work if the demo stickies like somehow launch their soldier up around this kind of area and he just jumps you and kind of kills your medic. That's something you need to be worried about. But this is generally the staple area I like being. I mean, I can poke this door very easily, that door, and as I said, I can poke the Spire very easily and just spam the Spire, spam the battlements. And,
so obviously the reason why that's so important is there's only one place they can go if they want to push you here. So because of the stickies down there, it's really hard for them to get in through pocket, and it's even harder for them to get in through front door, really. So, like, what you want to do as a team is make sure you know when they come across here. So that's on your pocket standing here. It's also on your Roma who will be watching drop down. Like this is the Roma spot. No one else stands here really. A scout might float here. And you want to be spamming this. There's no way they can get their whole team into drop down. Like a medic cannot get into drop down. It's impossible.
Thanks.
Yeah, so like you know that they're going to come from here when they walk up Spire, and that is the most standard approach. They walk up, as soon as they're all there, you're like, oh, they're all there. As a Roma, you pad your stats a bit by spamming this.
And we can get some crossfire, who knows, maybe we might get a med force or pick a demo or a scout or anything.
Yeah, it's quite possible. And you just pretty much, like as soon as they come up here, you want to like kind of back out. Like, as a Roma, you can kind of stay here and like wait for a scout to come and kill him, or just like spam across and try and cause havoc. You don't want to die though. And then you come back, and pretty much, it's kind of hard, but once they do take that position, once they walk up, it's like a ticking bomb. Like, you don't have that much more time to hold forward. Like, just because back in the day, you used to be able to hold a team there forever. Like, a long time ago, when players were worse and people didn't really know how to click rockets and stuff, like, you could hold a team there forever, and they had to Uber to get in. These days, though, like a lot of demo men and a lot of pockets are so strong now that they can just bully you and force you back and stuff. But you've forced them to walk up Spire, and you've kind of bought time in that regard. So I guess that's holding forward. Like we said before, you really want to do it when you have a disadvantage, or I mean, you can do it when you have equal Ubers too. And it's an especially important position. Sorry, when you like have just lost mid and you respawn. Like you want to try and get to here if you can't get to Spire.
Yeah. I guess
You
one
need to
thing
make sure
keep
your
in note-
demo's alive as well. That's
Yeah.
a really big thing.
And one thing to keep in note is a really powerful time to use this forward hold is, let's say it's Euro rule set, you're up 1-0. I mean, you're buying, you know, an extra minute or two or even more on the clock. You're just running the time down. That's just something that's really strong to do. And
so that's one of the times that you
might.
might want to stay there. Sorry, that's one of the times you might want to stay there when you have Uber. Like most of the time, like we said, you want to fall back to last once you get Uber. But if you're trying to run the clock down, yeah, hold forward. Like make sure you're like safe enough that you won't get picked or forced. But yeah, you can hold forward. As a roamer as well, I'm just going to have a little segue. Sorry, I know everyone loves it when I talk about roamer, but as a roamer, if you know that they're walking up, or if you know that they haven't walked up yet and they're still on Greybridge, what you can do if you don't suspect that he's got it stickied, if he's got it stickied, you've just ruined everything for your team. But something that I do a lot is I'll come out here and I'll then play for resub. Like this is probably an extra cheeky maneuver, I guess, because it's like a lot of teams still don't really expect it. Because if they're on Greybridge, it's just added spam. Like you're just doing damage, forcing them to walk up Spire, just putting pressure on. Who knows? They might push a player at you and you can get a kill. Like make sure you are playing near the resub door so you can get in. And then something you can do as well, especially if your team's just got Uber, or if you know that your team won't get Uber and they may have to give up forward hold, which can happen sometimes. So say like if you, like say your pocket's dead and they're gonna like hold W at you and your demo can't hold it on his own or something like that. Like, what I will do is once they're on Spire and I know they are, I'll walk down here. Their medic will just jump across and you can just jump up and put pressure on. And it's the same as before. I can guarantee you, if you don't miss, you should be able to force them or maybe get a kill. Like, obviously that's just an option. As a general rule, I would suggest not doing that, especially if you like aren't very good at reading the game and reading when you dying won't be the end of the world, because if you do that and you get a really long respawn and you don't achieve anything and they have Uber and your team doesn't and then they have to fall back, you might just lose last before you're alive again, and basically it's your fault. Like, that's when you have to own up and say, sorry, I jumped, I suck, I'm an idiot, please hate me.
Precisely.
Right. So let's do last.
True words have never been spoken.